Nintendo is my favorite game company of all time. I mean, look around, how much of this shit's Nintendo? And there's no shortage of fellow content creators who share that opinion with me. Nintendo YouTube is a bit of a small circle, but it feels like everyone within said circle knows each other and are friends, you know? Arlo and his impeccable discussion videos, Scott the Woz and his shenanigans which will never get old, Alpha Rad, Chugga Conroy, the Super Beard Bros, all of these guys are awesome, and I have so much respect for them as creators. But you can't talk about Nintendo on YouTube without discussing the breakneck news delivery team, Gamexplain. These guys started out as a website and have slowly snowballed into one of the biggest communities talking about Nintendo, and have definitely earned themselves a spot on most people's YouTube recommended just for their small news update videos. While the channel Gamexplain has existed for about 10 years now, the website that they started on goes back way further, and frankly, I'm just impressed that they had the gumption to keep up with uploads and news when their channel, from my recollection, only really snowballed and started to gain an audience when Super Smash Bros. For Wii U came out. That is when I hopped onto the channel after all. In that phase when Wii U was about to release and they had all this exclusive gameplay from press events, I needed that injected straight into my veins, and Gamexplain was happy to supply. And from that point on, I was hooked. Even if they weren't talking about something that particularly stood out to me, I would sit down and listen through their discussions. I'd watch all their reviews. Hell, I'd even watch the lame slideshows they make from Smash Pick of the Days. Their channel skyrocketed, getting 1 million subs and 1 billion views. But as with all things, eventually I fell off of the obsessive love that I had for the people behind Gamexplain. I would still pop in every now and then when news was afoot, but my undying need to consume their content would fade away. But while I was enjoying their content, something much more sinister was happening behind the scenes. Well, maybe not sinister, but definitely not great. Gamexplain has always had 3 members of particular note that many would refer to: Derek Bittner, Ash Paulson, and Andre Seegers. There were other members of Gamexplain, of course, but those were like the big 3, the big head honchos of the channel, and towards the end of my investment in the channel, they brought on a man named John Cartwright. And this guy defined Gamexplain for a while. Quickly skyrocketing to join the big 3 of Gamexplain in popularity, his distinct British voice, his great direct predictions, and just the general entertainment value he brought to every video, it was clear that he added a lot to the channel. And it seemed like everyone who was on the channel with him agreed and was grateful to have him around. So, color me shocked when he left the channel in September 2020 to join Nintendo life. Many, myself included, believed he left to satiate his personal life. As a British man working for a US-based company, it was likely he had to sleep at odd hours to balance that life. And for many, that was it. He just wanted to work normal hours. Until a few months later, in November 2020, other Gamexplain heads Ash Paulson, Derek Bittner, as well as another member of the team, Steve Bowling, left Gamexplain all in quick succession. Derek tweeted that he had another big project to work on, and Cartwright uploaded a video saying that he was helping out some friends with a new project by giving them his personal YouTube channel. This project was soon revealed to be Good Vibes Gaming, a channel focusing on gaming and, well, keeping good vibes. It's a very straightforward name. But this raised the question: why did all these folks from Gamexplain leave so close together? Well, it turns out that Gamexplain echoed a practice that's all too common in the games they cover nowadays, and that is crunch. Crunch time, for the uninitiated, is pulling long hours at a personal sacrifice for the sake of getting a piece of content out on time. In my opinion, this isn't inherently a bad thing if people are doing it voluntarily out of passion, or if they're being very well compensated. It toes the line of being okay. But that's not what's happening here. Mr. Steve Bowling was forced to review the Final Fantasy VII Remake in just 2 days and put out a full review on it after a mishap with Square Enix. According to his wife, he was paid $1 to $2 an hour for that service. This was originally uncovered on Reset Era, and due to the nature of that website, many people didn't believe these claims. But those who had already had a bone to pick with GX due to their milking of content and re-uploading Nintendo trailers were ready to condemn the group. This led Gamexplain to trend on Twitter for a bit, but nothing really came of it. Until recently. Derek Bittner came out and posted on Reset Era himself, or rather had Ash post his statement, and as someone who truly loves and respects this man, my heart wrenched for what he had to say. To summarize, Derek had limited his real-life social life so he could always be on call for Gamexplain, and he was taking yearly raises, until the aforementioned Mr. John Cartwright joined the team, in which he was encouraged to take more breaks, and his pay rate stagnated because of it. Derek was okay with this, as he assumed other members would be compensated more for their efforts as well. Most work expenses also fell onto Derek. Stuff like game consoles, hotels, flights, they were all his own to take care of, despite being for the good of the company. However, come 2020, Derek found out that John was making less than half of what he was making, despite doing the same amount of work. Andre had become controlling over the money situation, constantly having to be reminded to pay his employees, using his position to strong-arm employees into doing specifically what he wanted, and giving John extra work once his YouTube channel gained traction. He also asked Derek to stop streaming because in his opinion, it conflicted with their news content, and all the money gained from those streams had to be invoiced back by Derek, who, mind you, had a child on the way and probably really needed that extra money. So he began to move things to his personal Twitch for streaming, asked to keep it from conflicting with Gamexplain's news-based content, and then Andre gave him an ultimatum: stream to the Gamexplain Twitch account, or be considered a freelancer and dash his pay rates immensely. He ended up getting the money, but everything still went through Andre's hand before getting to Derek. Also, supposedly Andre thought that Derek streaming would stop people from wanting to become patrons for Gamexplain, at which point, I shit you not, he prepared a PowerPoint presentation to talk about how Derek was bringing in less money than he was being paid, and questioned whether or not he was actually loyal to Gamexplain. Again, with a child on the way, Derek felt that he couldn't risk his family, and went along with everything Andre said. When Derek was given a contract for being a full-time employee, the contract basically changed nothing about his employment except title, and relinquished the little control he had over the Twitch channel back to Andre. And on top of all of that, tucked into the contract was a non-compete clause, which means if something had happened and he needed to leave Gamexplain, he would not be able to do anything in the same field for a year. Which, as a content creator, can be the difference of food on the table for a year. Derek went to his friends for advice about what to do, and eventually he decided to join Ash on his adventure of making a new channel, titled Good Vibes Gaming, and that's where we are right now. Derek ends his address by saying not to harass anyone who works at Gamexplain, and saying that he just wanted to shed light on the situation. A little while later, Ash made his own statement and reaffirmed much of what Derek said, as well as exposing some more gross behaviors within the Gamexplain walls. So I'm going to try to focus on the new information Ash brought to the table. However, I recommend you read both these statements in full before making any harsh judgments yourself. Ash explains that over the years, his appearances on the channel were starting to fade. And while many speculated, he confirmed himself it was because Gamexplain didn't exactly pay the bills. As a freelancer for Gamexplain, there was no set rates for payment, despite many requests to do so, and Ash just decided that his time would be better spent elsewhere. He goes on to describe that while the relationship with the company as a freelancer wasn't amazing, it was ultimately way better than anything the full-time employees got, saying that Andre had become authoritarian when it came to Gamexplain content, and basically established himself as the leader when Derek and John are the ones responsible for where the channel is today. And on top of all of that, neither John nor Steve were paid for their first while of Gamexplain work. So what should we do with this information? Why am I making a video on this? Well, contrary to what you might be thinking, I'm not trying to capitalize on drama as much as I am just trying to get this more into the public eye. As a content creator, albeit a small one, I felt the need to try and spread the story. People in this space are so supportive of each other typically, and I want to make sure the support gravy train hits Derek and the Good Vibes Gaming crew. They played a huge gamble jumping ship to a much smaller channel and upending their careers at GX. Doing something like that on this platform is a huge risk, and I commend them for having the courage to do it. Not to mention that the channel they're working on is a channel all about spreading the positivity. I didn't make this video to expose Gamexplain as evil, but more so highlight the struggles these creators are going through. So, you know what? Let's send some good vibes their way. God knows they probably need it. And if you want to send me good vibes, make sure to... Okay, no. Typically in this portion of the video is when I'd say like and subscribe and do all that, but today, let's just go support Good Vibes Gaming. I really like their content, they're very nice people, I mean, honestly, I love everything they do down there, so go donate to their Patreon, watch and like all their videos, it'll be great. And if you want more RV content, it'll be here soon enough. Anyways, see ya!